Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. We're counting it down to the Kentucky Derby. It is a special event. As we talked about, it's a bucket list event. We've had guests on here talking about how special it is and what it means to them in the horse business. What it means to those in the Commonwealth Kentucky is pretty much everything. It's a state with a few minor league baseball teams, but professional sports, they don't have any. The emphasis is on college sports. And the Kentucky Derby is the biggest sporting event of the year in the state. So much so that every TV station, every newspaper, podcast, whatever, will center around it sometimes during the week, maybe for the entire week. One of the stations that does a great job going the whole soup to nuts of the Kentucky Derby is WLEX-TV in Lexington, Kentucky, the NBC affiliate. Their main anchor and the top anchor in the Lexington market is Nancy Cox, a multiple Emmy Award winner who has followed horse racing for many years, and Nancy joins us now. Welcome to the Horse Racing Show.
I love the title. You just can't get any more explanatory than that. It's the Horse Racing
We
Show.
try to keep this simple, Nancy.
I like it. Simple's good.
Now, simple is not, though, what you guys will be doing at Channel 18, the NBC station in Lexington, Derby week, because your coverage goes like all week, and then Derby day, it's like a small network.
It really is. For a television station in this size market to do what we do is pretty spectacular. And when we started out doing this in 2000, it wasn't anything like this, and it has grown and grown, and the desire from sponsors to be a part of that has enabled us to just get bigger and bigger. And it's by far, it's that one weekend or that 1 week is bigger than the other 11 months of the year, no question.
You're like me, a Kentuckian.
Mm-hmm.
Did you grow up with an affection for horse racing, or is that something that, for me, it developed? It wasn't like I grew up, other than I'd watch the Derby on TV, but I wasn't into horse racing until later on in life. With you?
My mother never sat around with us watching UK basketball, or she'd maybe watch when Muhammad Ali had a match. But when the Derby came on, everything stopped for my mom. Always on that Saturday, she made sure she was home. She made sure she had dinner made or whatever, and she watched it. And that fascinated me because what made my mom put everything else aside like this? So I don't remember the first Derby I watched, and I haven't missed one, at least watching one since. So I grew up knowing there's just something special about this. And like you, the more I was around it, the more I was exposed, that affection for the sport and for these athletes, these animals just grew and grew. And I cry every year during my whole Kentucky home now.
And every year, they ask us, how do you come up with stories? But every year, the story kind of almost tells itself in some cases. That person that's not supposed to be there, they got there with the horse that wasn't supposed to be there. Now they're there. In addition to, I guess, and that's why it's a 50-50 split in demographics. I'm probably on Channel 18. It certainly is that way with the NBC. You got men and women watching. So you also have the fashions and the food and drink mixed in with the human interest stories.
We actually have more women watching our all-day coverage because we do begin about 5:30 in the morning. And it goes all day until 2:30 when NBC takes over its network coverage. So obviously it's not just about the race for all that. It's more like a festival. It's the whole state's homecoming. And for those people who've never been able to go, it is really remarkable to me for them to be able to sit down and watch all day coverage, whether it be in Lexington or Louisville. The Louisville stations do the same thing. So they get to feel a part of things. I've run into people over the years. There's a lady in Maysville who operates a miniature museum, a museum of miniatures. And they had a Kentucky Derby display. It was a parlor of one of these big farms after they've won the Derby, and you could see the blanket of roses and the trophy and all that. But anyway, she was that invested in it, but she had never gone to the Derby.
Wow.
But she told me how important it was to her that she sets her alarm, kind of like the royal wedding. You set the alarm, you get up, and people watch every minute of it. They want to see the fashion and the people and the stories behind the athletes whether that be the jockeys or the horses, the owners or trainers, where they came from, how they got this dream. As you said, the story always develops. There are always unique backgrounds there. So this woman was just joyful. She was bubbling, talking about how she could watch it and feel a part of it. And she's in her 70s, and she said, I may never go, but I feel like I've been there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's what it's about to me, because it is a 2-minute horse race.
Right.
And you've got hours of TV coverage. We're talking with Nancy Cox, the top anchor at WLAX-TV in Lexington, the NBC affiliate, leading into the NBC coverage, of course, of the Derby. And, you know, we're on like NBC. We do so many hours. I don't even really know how many hours we do.
Oh, yeah.
I just know I show up and talk a lot. Sometimes I talk, say don't talk as much. But, there's always something to cover. But I do find it's the only sporting event I can think of that's so much hype. Maybe the Super Bowl in terms of amount of hours, if you start breaking down per capita hours compared to actual game time of a Super Bowl. I can't think of, maybe they do it in some other markets, but I don't know any state outside of Louisville, any state out Kentucky, outside of Lexington and Louisville that devotes the time they do to the Derby. A little bit in Baltimore. I've been there for the Preakness, and their stations will devote like all day to the Preakness. But I don't think they do like the whole week, like Lexington and Louisville stations do.
And we're there on Friday for the Oaks, and every newscast beginning at 4:30 in the morning, we have a live presence there and do the majority of our coverage from there. I was just thinking, you were talking about the all-day coverage. I remember I was about, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 before I realized that the Kentucky Derby wasn't just one race that everybody went to. I didn't know there were other races on the card that day, because the Derby's all that mattered. I thought everyone just gathered and spent 8-10 hours until the race.
It kind of seems that way to us. We'll cover a few other races during the course of the day, but let's face it, nobody says, hey, do you remember who? No, they remember the Derby.
They remember the Derby.
And that is what's so special about it. And there you are through wind and sleet and snow and dark of night. Well, we haven't got the dark of night yet. It got pretty dark. It got pretty dark in the Smarty Jones downpour year. Yes. I remember in 2004. And then last year, the rain all day. I don't ever remember a Derby where it did not let up.
I know. I agree. And the Smarty Jones year was we didn't have a cover over our broadcast position at that time, because that was only about 5 years into it. We'd had decent weather. We had no cover. My poor hat became like like it was made out of putty or something. It just kind of drooped and molded to my head. And we had tornado watches, I believe, if not a warning nearby. So we had to clear our position because we were not undercover and all the electricity and everything. So we go huddle under this little, canopy, and a man beside me, I'll never forget, was just going to town on this cigar. And we're all just bunched up in here, and he's just blowing smoke right in everybody's face. And I was like, I'm cold, I'm wet, and I'm breathing cigar smoke. But it was still the Derby. I would do it again just to be there when those horses come out and do the post parade. That's
why you win all those Emmy Awards.
No.
I would have said, put the cigar out. Look, I'm choking to death. I'm wet.
I was really close.
I'm miserable. And so how much preparation will you do for the Derby now? We're right about a month out.
Yeah. Every year I say I'm going to start a little earlier, because we don't know the field really until just a week before. It's kind of hard to learn much about any of the horses except those maybe top 10. But I do put a lot of time in trying to get those backstories, not just, this horse has won this many races and it was bred here or there, but what are the connections and what are their stories? So I take notes for about that month, and I'm continually sort of updating them, organizing them, and certainly because initially when we started this and we were doing this, 12-hour coverage or something, you always had that fear of running out of things to say. So did all that research and had it all, but by now I'm a little more comfortable with everything about the Derby and our coverage. So I'll still prep over that period of time, but I'm not memorizing and cramming like for a college final.
And you don't run out of things to say.
Probably not. Most people around me would agree with you.
We don't run out of things to say. You can see Nancy on WLEX TV. if you come to Kentucky that week, you're in Lexington, Louisville, flip on one of the stations. So we're not trying to plug anybody in particular, but listen to any of the stations. Naturally, I'm biased to the NBC stations, but it's amazing the coverage and how many people are going to be there for you guys, because we talked about small network.
Right.
You know, we've got like 300 people doing the NBC show. Compared to the times you have and the staff you have, it's amazing all the people to be there for LEX.
We probably have about 100.
Yeah.
And many of those are freelancers. We rent a production truck because we just outgrew the equipment we had when we kept expanding our coverage. So we rent a production truck, and that comes with people we pay to run that. So it's probably a 100-person with the talent and everything all together. And they'll go up a week and a half ahead of time and start physically running cable from that truck to all these positions inside Churchill Downs. I know you all probably have things that stay in place and you come in and just plug into them every year. We don't have that. We have to run those cables to all those positions. So you have monitors, you have lights, you have microphones, you have intercom so that we can hear and speak to our producers. And then a few of the simple comforts, a chair with a pad in it and a raincoat if you need it, plastic if you need to cover. So if you could see what's sitting around me, and I have about this much room to get in there because you have water and you have snacks because we don't get to eat during that time. So it is a monumental effort. It really is. And our folks, they're amazing. Nobody complains.
Well, it's always great to watch the award-winning coverage. I do tape it, by the way.
Oh, you're kidding.
I'm not there. I'm kind of busy that day,
Yeah,
but I do
a little
tape it. But I believe you know a member of our staff here.
I do?
I believe you know Mr. Thomas Kenny, our researcher.
Well, yes, I do. I have seen him on, Mr. Thomas Kenny, and
he's very talented.
he is, and he's learning a lot about horse racing. Is he here?
Yes, hey, look. What a coincidence. Look who has just joined us now.
Hi, Mr. Kenny.
Hello.
So nice to see you at work in the professional setting. I just think he's so cute.
Isn't he, though?
Darling. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to do that.
Oh,
You might want to explain this relationship.
You're not embarrassed, are you, Thomas?
Of course not.
Of
You got
course
over
not.
that a long time ago.
That's Thomas's mom, who came up with the idea, and I said, that's great. This is because it fascinates me. I don't know if there's too many places in the country. Do you, Thomas, where a local TV station is going to devote like a whole week of coverage and like 10 or 12 hours in one day to one sport? I'm sure somebody does out there.
One event.
One event. I don't know who it would be, but not like Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky does.
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
I think of maybe, some of the other huge events, like the Daytona 500 maybe.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Maybe not as extensive. Maybe they don't do a whole week leading up to it.
Right.
But,
Yeah, maybe the Indy 500, maybe.
Yeah, I have a friend who has been in Indiana TV, and I know for them it has been rough, but we've never compared notes on the amount of
Well,
coverage.
it's time we start. We think Kentucky Derby coverage is the best.
Oh, I would agree there, of course. I will tell you that NBC has encroached upon our territory a few times. We used to do our coverage.
What, me?
We used to do our coverage from 5:30 in the morning, and we would go up until 4, sometimes 4:30 before NBC got in
tired
the
of
game.
That, Nancy.
I guess you did. You
got
needed
tired
some
of
more
that.
airtime. And then we would come back on after you guys finished, and we would do a wrap-up show, and you talked about being out there in the dark. It was almost dark when we left Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
NBC thought that was a pretty good plan, so they started extending their coverage, but at least now I get to get out of there and actually watch the Derby.
I would love to see the Derby someday myself.
I bet you would.
Now, you know what I watch it off of? I watch it off the big screen.
Yeah.
I'm down there on the floor. Last year I was in the back. They have a little area there off the paddock. I sit back there with Bob Baffert, and I watched it on the screen. But that's how I watch the Derby. We're not in a position where we're up in the stands and we get a nice view because, as soon as that race is over, we got to talk to somebody or see what happens,
For a lot of years, folks at Channel 18, and maybe I've been guilty of that, you kind of, in a way, you dread it because it is a long day. It's a lot of work. You don't get to enjoy the Derby as soon as it's over. You go right back to work. But every year, no matter how tired I am or whatever, or how early I've left my kids still sleeping in bed, I get there, and hours before the Derby, and the air's different.
Yeah, it is.
The energy's different, and all that complaining just gone.
Yeah. Do you watch your mom?
Yeah, for the Derby.
Good answer.
For years, though, where did you watch the Derby? Do you recall when you were playing baseball?
No.
No? Well, when you were playing at Southeastern Baseball, when you were 7, 8, 9. Yeah.
That's tall.
Yeah, about that tall. They would always have ball games Derby Day and during
yeah.
the Derby. And finally, they started putting up a screen at Southeastern Baseball Park.
Well, there's priorities. Thomas was catching. He had to throw runners out, had to get hits.
I know, right?
And he couldn't really worry about who's in
Saving
the winner's
games,
circle.
walk-off doubles, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. You didn't think I remembered, did you?
Yeah. Nancy.
But they would watch on the big screen.
Oh, I like that.
Do you ever want to go to the Derby?
I'm not opposed to it.
Well,
Yeah.
we're going to be on location, by the way, at Churchill Downs the week before the
Oh,
Derby.
that's great.
Yeah, Thomas will
You'll
be up
get a
there.
sense of
Ben
it.
will
I
be
bet
there.
you'll
Scott
wanna go.
Hall will be there. Nancy, thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Sorry if I rambled.
No, you didn't.
Sorry if I embarrassed you.
Did she embarrass you?
Of course not.
Of course not. Nancy Cox, great job. Watch her when you're passing through Lexington or watch the Derby coverage. That's why she wins all the Emmy Awards, and that is WLEX TV. The Derby's a big deal. We're going to talk more about it again next week. Again, thank you so much, Nancy. And right now, it is time for our Rude and Riddle Vet Check.